1. Trump's takeover. How CBS and ABC sold out to the Donald. 2. Stephen Colbert slams Paramount's $16 million Trump settlement late night. Host calls it a big fat bribe. 3. Jon Stewart confronts Paramount over $16 million Trump settlement. Was it shakedown? 4. Trump versus CBS. The $30 million settlement that changed media forever. 5. Colbert roasts Paramount's $16 million big fat bribe to Trump. Late night laughs. 1. Trump's takeover. How CBS and ABC sold out to the Donald. The recent settlements between ABC, CBS, and former President Donald Trump mark a troubling shift, one that edges dangerously close to the commander-in-chief acting as the editor-in-chief of major news outlets. This development raises serious questions about the independence of journalism and the future of press freedom. For months, speculation swirled that Paramount would eventually settle what many experts deemed a baseless lawsuit filed by Trump. The lawsuit challenged editorial choices made during the production of a CBS interview with Kamala Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee in 2024. On July 2, 2025, those rumors were confirmed. Paramount agreed to pay $16 million to the future Trump Presidential Library, a sum that included Trump's legal fees to bring the lawsuit to an end. This decision came despite widespread consensus among media law scholars and practicing attorneys that the lawsuit lacked merit. Yet, Sherry Redstone, Paramount's largest shareholder, chose to settle. This move was not made in isolation. It was deeply intertwined with Paramount's ongoing efforts to sell the company to Skydance Media, a deal that had been stalled since July 2024 due to regulatory hurdles. When the Trump administration took office in January 2025, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, was no longer obligated to approve the transfer of CBS's broadcast licenses without thorough scrutiny. Under the leadership of Republican Chairman Brendan Carr, the FCC was fully aware of the legal battle between Trump and CBS at the critical moment when Paramount sought approval for the license transfers. Without resolving the lawsuit, the Paramount Skydance acquisition risked collapse. And so, Paramount capitulated. This settlement followed a similar pattern set earlier in 2025 when Disney agreed to pay $15 million to Trump's future library to settle a separate lawsuit involving ABC News. That case revolved around the phrasing used to describe Trump's liability in a civil suit brought by Jean Carroll. What do these settlements mean for journalism? Many experts warn of a chilling effect within network newsrooms. The fear of costly litigation could lead to self-censorship, where journalists hesitate to pursue investigative stories about the Trump administration or other powerful figures, fearing legal repercussions. This internal restraint could undermine the watchdog role that network news has traditionally played. Trump appears to have achieved something no previous president managed, securing millions from major media corporations in exchange for ending lawsuits over editorial content. Historically, presidents have tried to influence broadcast journalism, but usually behind the scenes and without such direct financial consequences. For example, President Jimmy Carter once attempted to persuade CBS anchor Walter Cronkite to stop ending his newscasts with the number of days American hostages were held in Iran. President Nixon threatened the broadcast licenses of the Washington Post TV stations to weaken Watergate coverage. President Lyndon Johnson, who owned local TV and radio stations, frequently complained about what he saw as biased Vietnam War reporting, even accusing CBS and NBC of being controlled by the Viet Cong. Yet, none of these presidents managed to extract millions from news organizations or force public settlements that could damage journalistic independence. These earlier conflicts remained largely behind closed doors, allowing networks to maintain their credibility with the public. CBS Evening News anchor John Dickerson captured the dilemma perfectly on the night of the Paramount settlement. Can you hold power to account when you've paid it millions? Can an audience trust you when it thinks you've traded away that trust? He added, the audience would decide that. Our job is to show up to honor what we witness on behalf of the people we witness it for. There's a well-known saying in TV news, you're only as good as your last show. Soon, Skydance Media will take control of Paramount's properties, including CBS's flagship stations like KCBS in Los Angeles and WCBS in New York. The true impact of these corporate decisions will become clear only over time, as we observe the content and integrity of future broadcasts. As a scholar and former broadcast journalist, I urge viewers to judge programs like 60 Minutes and the CBS Evening News based on their performance over the next few years, as well as their historical track record. The same applies to ABC News and its flagship programs. Interestingly, 60 Minutes has continued to break significant stories critical of the Trump administration in the first half of 2025, despite the corporate pressures surrounding the lawsuit. This suggests that some journalists remain committed to independent, rigorous reporting. Ultimately, if the public values ethical, independent journalism that holds those in power accountable, it is up to viewers to support and watch these programs. Only by engaging with the content can we truly understand the consequences of these settlements. The journalists at ABC and CBS are well aware of their organization's legacies and the doubts cast on their professionalism by their owners' decisions. Yet, as Dickerson noted, they intend to show up and continue their work. I believe many are motivated to restore trust and prove their commitment to journalistic integrity. Will Donald Trump effectively become the editor-in-chief of these newsrooms over the next 3 years? I don't think the journalists, editors, and producers plan to let that happen. But the only way to know for sure is to watch closely and hold them accountable. What do you think? Are these settlements a dangerous precedent for press freedom or a necessary business decision? Share your thoughts below. This is a conversation we all need to have. 2. Stephen Colbert slams Paramount's $16 million Trump settlement late night. Host calls it a big fat bribe. Stephen Colbert just delivered a scathing indictment of corporate media ethics, and he's targeting his own employer. In a bold Monday monologue, the late-night host blasted Paramount Global over his decision to pay $16 million to settle a lawsuit filed by former President Donald Trump. This settlement, finalized on July 3rd, resolved Trump's allegations that 60 Minutes deceptively edited his 2024 interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. Source: The Daily Beast. Colbert, visibly angered, declared, "As a longtime proud employee of this network, I feel personally betrayed. I don't know if my trust in this company can ever be restored." Then, with biting sarcasm, just throwing it out there, maybe $16 million would help rebuild that trust? Here's where it gets controversial. Colbert argued this wasn't just a routine settlement. He insisted Paramount could have easily fought the lawsuit in court, but chose a purely financial shortcut instead. With trademark wit, he labeled the payout. In legal circles, we call this kind of payment to a sitting government official by its technical term, a big fat bribe. But why would a media giant allegedly bribe a politician? Colbert connected the dots to Paramount's pending $8 billion merger with Skydance Media. He suggested the payment was strategically timed to gain regulatory approval from the Trump administration. Quoting Puck News, "The new owner's desire to please Trump could put pressure on frequent Trump critic Stephen Colbert. And this is the part most people miss. This merger threatens more than just principles. Multiple reports indicate it could destabilize The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and Comedy Central's The Daily Show, both Paramount properties." Colbert mocked the potential pressure with a visual gag, pointing to his disguised appearance. How will they pressure Stephen Colbert if they can't even find him? While acknowledging Paramount didn't admit wrongdoing, unlike ABC and Twitter and similar settlements, Colbert's praise was deliberately backhanded. He sarcastically reimagined the corporate statement. "You may take our money, but never our dignity. Though you can buy our dignity for the low, low price of $16 million. Now we turn to you. Does a corporate settlement with a political figure during a regulatory review cross ethical lines? Is this savvy business or dangerous capitulation? Share your take below. Should media companies stand on principle, or is $16 million just the cost of doing business in today's political landscape? 3. Jon Stewart confronts Paramount over $16 million Trump settlement. Was it shakedown? In a stunning twist of corporate drama, Jon Stewart turned his sharp wit toward his own network's parent company and the fallout could shake the foundations of media integrity. On a recent episode of The Daily Show, Stewart teamed up with veteran journalist Steve Kroft to dissect Paramount Global's controversial $16 million settlement with Donald Trump, a move critics are calling protection money to safeguard a billion-dollar merger. But here's where it gets messy: the legal battle, the political pressure, and the uneasy question of whether truth still matters in journalism. /n/, let's rewind. Last week, Paramount Global, the parent company of CBS News, agreed to pay $16 million to resolve a lawsuit filed by Trump. His claim? That a 2023 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris was edited to make her appear more favorable ahead of the 2024 election. CBS denied any wrongdoing, insisting the edits were standard practice. Yet, as Stewart and Kroft pointed out, the lawsuit itself was widely dismissed as baseless by legal experts. So why pay up? Because Kroft explained the real stakes weren't about journalism. They were about a pending $8 billion merger with Skydance Media. That deal requires approval from the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, currently chaired by Trump ally Brendan Carr. In other words, the lawsuit became a political bargaining chip. /n/, would you call this a bribe to keep the merger on track? Stewart asked, leaning into the camera with mock innocence. Kroft, who spent decades at 60 Minutes, didn't hesitate. It's a shakedown. Plain and simple. The network never admitted fault, yet handed over millions, a decision that smells more like corporate survival than journalistic accountability. And this is the part most people miss: the chilling effect on free press. Kroft revealed that morale at 60 Minutes is at an all-time low, with staff fearing not just job loss, but the erosion of First Amendment protections in an era of politicized regulation. /n/, but wait. Let's talk about hypocrisy. Stewart highlighted a glaring double standard. Fox News once aired an edited clip of Trump where he appeared to endorse declassifying documents about Jeffrey Epstein, only to release a longer version later. No lawsuit followed. Why is CBS, the so-called gold standard of news, forced to pay millions for routine editing, he asked, while Fox faces zero consequences for what looks like far worse manipulation? It's a question that cuts to the heart of media bias debates, and one that's likely to spark fiery arguments in comment sections everywhere. /n now. Let's zoom out. This isn't just about one lawsuit or one network. The merger with Skydance, led by Trump-backing billionaire David Ellison, threatens to amplify existing tensions around editorial independence. Stewart himself may soon feel the squeeze. He left Apple TV's The Problem with Jon Stewart in 2023 after clashing over coverage of China and AI, topics sensitive to Apple's massive Chinese supply chain and its new AI software. Could Comedy Central, now part of Skydance, face similar constraints? Stewart's skepticism is palpable. They're chasing Trump's approval like he's the world's most temperamental Yelp reviewer, he quipped. /n/, so here's the burning question. When powerful figures weaponize lawsuits to silence criticism, or worse, profit from it, who protects the truth? Is paying off a frivolous claim a smart business move, or a dangerous precedent that undermines public trust? Drop your thoughts below. Do you side with Stewart's outrage, or does corporate pragmatism sometimes demand a price? Let's debate. 4. Trump versus CBS, the $30 million settlement that changed media forever. In a dramatic turn of events that shook the media landscape, former President Donald Trump took a bold stand by filing a $20 billion lawsuit against CBS News over their editing of a crucial interview with Kamala Harris, which ultimately resulted in a settlement worth over $30 million. But here's where it gets controversial. This case has ignited fierce debates about journalistic ethics, corporate influence, and the integrity of election coverage. And this is the part most people miss. Does this settlement signal a new era of accountability or a troubling capitulation by major networks? Let's break down what happened in this high-stakes saga. It all began on October 8, 2024, when CBS's iconic program 60 Minutes aired two different responses from Kamala Harris to the same question during separate segments. Conservatives mocked Harris for her extended, often confusing reply on Face the Nation, where she discussed why Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seemed unresponsive to the U.S. Yet, when CBS aired her 60 Minutes interview, the same question was met with a much shorter, more concise answer, raising immediate suspicions of deliberate editing. By October 18, 2024, critics, including a former FCC commissioner, argue that CBS's editing might violate federal regulations designed to ensure truthful broadcasting. They claimed the discrepancies amounted to deliberate distortions aimed at misleading viewers and interfered with electoral processes. The Center for American Rights formally filed complaints with the FCC, emphasizing that such edited broadcasts could undermine public trust. And this is where the controversy really heats up, in response to nationwide outrage, including Trump publicly condemning the edits and calling for CBS to lose its broadcasting license. CBS issued a statement falsely claiming the editing was standard practice and that Trump had pulled out of the interview altogether. The network insisted that 60 Minutes simply presented a different segment of Harris's response in various programs, implying no wrongdoing. Then, on October 31, 2024, Trump took legal action, suing CBS for a staggering $10 billion, accusing the network of intentionally manipulating the interview to influence the upcoming presidential election. As the fallout grew, Trump's attorneys accused CBS of engaging in election interference by intentionally distorting Harris's answers and trying to sway voter sentiment in favor of the Democratic Party. In an even more aggressive move, the lawsuit amount was later doubled to $20 billion. Fast forward to early February 2025, and the FCC released the full, unedited transcript of the Harris interview, exposing what CBS had selectively aired. This revelation showed that the network had aired only part of her response during the 60 Minutes broadcast, specifically, only the latter half, which further confirmed allegations of biased editing. In April 2025, Trump publicly condemned CBS, claiming he was honored to be suing the network over what he called fraudulent reporting, asserting that CBS worked to undermine his campaign by corruptly altering her answers. That same month, the longtime 60 Minutes executive producer, Bill Owens, suddenly resigned, citing an inability to continue his previous role under the mounting pressure. As legal proceedings intensified, Paramount, CBS's parent company, entered mediation to resolve the dispute. Despite heated opposition from Democratic lawmakers and numerous critics, CBS and Paramount eventually agreed to a settlement in July 2025. This included paying Trump over $30 million, a figure comprising upfront legal compensation and additional funds earmarked for conservative causes, and committing to overhaul their editorial standards. One of the most significant changes was the introduction of what insiders now call the Trump Rule, a policy mandating the immediate release of full, unedited transcripts of interviews with presidential candidates, aiming to restore transparency. However, the settlement sparked widespread outrage within the journalism and legal communities. Critics argued that CBS's decision to settle, rather than defend its journalistic integrity, set a dangerous precedent, encouraging future political interference and undermining press independence. Prominent figures like Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, and seasoned CBS journalists publicly expressed their disapproval, framing the move as a blow to credibility. Some commentators went further, labeling this outcome as a disgraceful capitulation, a betrayal to the principles of honest journalism. Structural questions remain. Does this settlement embolden political figures to bully media outlets into submission? Or does it force networks to confront their own editorial biases openly? In the end, this saga is more than just a legal battle. It reflects the ongoing clash between journalistic independence and political influence in an era where truth itself is increasingly disputed. As public trust in media continues to waver, many ask, will other networks follow CBS's lead? And at what cost to democratic discourse? What do you think? Is this settlement a necessary step toward accountability? Or does it signal a dangerous surrender for the sake of corporate convenience? Join the conversation in the comments below. Your voice matters in this pivotal debate about the future of media integrity. 5. Colbert roast Paramount's $16 million big fat bribe to Trump. Late night laughs. Imagine paying millions of dollars to silence a critic. Does that sound like a legal settlement, or does it sound more like a bribe? That's exactly how Stephen Colbert framed Paramount Global's recent $16 million agreement to resolve Donald Trump's lawsuit against CBS's iconic 60 Minutes program. In a sharp-witted monologue from The Late Show, Colbert didn't just mock the payout. He turned it into a punchline, joking that the new owner of CBS, Skydance Media, might soon pressure him to dial back his jokes about the former president. But here's where it gets controversial. Colbert's take isn't just humor. It's a pointed critique of a corporate deal that some argue smells of undue influence. The dispute began earlier this month when Trump sued CBS, alleging that 60 Minutes had misleadingly edited an interview with Kamala Harris ahead of the 2024 election. Legal experts largely dismissed the case as baseless, and Paramount's own lawyers reportedly agreed, calling it completely without merit. Yet, the company still chose to settle, raising eyebrows, especially since the deal coincides with its pending merger with Skydance. And this is the part most people miss. Securing Trump's approval for that merger is a non-negotiable hurdle. As Colbert quipped, "You may take our money, but you will never take our dignity, unless you pay $16 million for it." Colbert didn't hold back in highlighting the absurdity of the situation. He pointed out that unlike previous settlements with ABC and Twitter, which included public apologies, Paramount's agreement lacked any remorse. Instead, the corporation issued a statement that read like a sarcastic press release. "We're giving you cash, but we're keeping our dignity, unless you buy it." To drive the point home, he even joked about his new mustache, taunting Skydance. "How are they going to pressure me if they can't even find me?" But the real question here is, was this a legitimate business move? Or does it cross into unethical territory? The settlement's timing, just as Paramount seeks Trump's blessing for its Skydance merger, has sparked outrage among lawmakers like Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has called for investigations into whether anti-bribery laws were violated. After all, what happens when a company pays a sitting official to avoid legal trouble, especially when that payment is tied to a major corporate transaction? Is this transparency, or is it a dangerous precedent? So what do you think? Was this a necessary compromise, or does it set a troubling example for how corporations handle political conflicts? Share your thoughts in the comments, because when billions are on the line between business and ethics can get awfully blurry.